wear them or like what are the other elements since we're trying to do like a second year?
Maybe it is because I'm so used to seeing red.
Okay, so
I think that the yellow makes it more happy and the blue very calming. So we should have done like a red logo and it's too aggressive. I feel like it's too aggressive. Like me and Kim were talking about it. She's like, oh, we should have done branding colors. I was like, yes and no because like the red is such a very hot, it's very red. So I'm glad that we did it. Like the green and kept it out. And then
I'm super happy about it.
back end of this is not necessarily.
Guys, we're going to start. Everybody could take, thank you.
This special meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at exactly 5:04. I am very pleased that you have taken time to join us this evening. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. We have established a quorum. I will call roll. Mr. Macias? Present. Ms. Canoia?
Present.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, present.
And our president, Ms. Jennifer?
Present.
And I am Deborah Eaton, the board secretary. And I will relinquish this at this moment to, and Ms. Pashaw? Present. I will now relinquish this to our board president.
All right. Apologies for being late. Did you already get called on for roll call, Mr. Macias? Okay, so we're good to go. All right. So the first item on our agenda is board training, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We will go ahead and get started. Tonight, we have some information that we will like to share with you. The information is coming from Walsh Gallegos, specifically from Tony Resendez. He will be sharing some information with the board on ethical do's and don'ts in a bond election. Then followed by that, we'll give a presentation in regards to some of the things that we have already planned and a timeline for our bond.
Good evening, Superintendent, board members. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you guys and share some information which we hope will be practical and useful and informational. Stacy put together a great PowerPoint. I'm going to hand these out to you guys, and she's going to start with the PowerPoint. And then we have John Hall is back here as well. He's going to touch on some PAC issues just in general. And then we have also a closed session item where we want to give you some more specific legal issues that we want to be aware of. So let me hand these out to you guys.
And what he's giving y'all is the slides you're going to see on your computer screen as well. This is just something you can take with you if you wanted to look back on what we talked about. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Okay. I'll just, well, I don't need that. I can, oh, okay. It's okay. What he's passing out to you is the same thing on the slide in the PowerPoint that you have in front of you. These, the handout, though, you can keep with you and refer back to if you need to later. So what I want to talk to y'all about tonight is ethical considerations in throwing this bond election. So why is that important? Lately in the news, hiccups in bond elections have been making the news in various school districts across the state. And as you can see on some of these headlines from the newspaper and the online news, that it can range from miscommunications, it can range from things they've said in their flyers and in their brochures that constituted electioneering that the Attorney General has been coming down kind of hard on lately and has been investigating, and AG has been investigating some of the complaints that have been filed concerning electioneering or what they believe or the complaint was about electioneering. So that's what I want to go over tonight so we can avoid those kind of hiccups in this election season. Well, why does it matter? What is electioneering? What is advocacy? And in the code, if you electioneer for the bond, or if you engage in impermissible advocacy for the bond, it is a Class A misdemeanor, up to a $4,000 penalty, plus up to 1 year in jail. There are other enhancement penalties that can go on top of that, such as conspiracy, et cetera. And this applies not only to district employees, but it can also apply to officers and trustees of the district. So let's avoid that. So what can we tell the public about the bond election? We've talked about this previously. It's only factual information if you're using district resources. So as a board, this is very unique to the board itself versus employees at the district, and we'll cover this throughout the presentation. As school district trustees, you are able to advocate for the bond as long as you're not using district resources. So using district resources and examples here tonight, here on the days, we're in a school facility where this is district resources, so you would not be able to advocate for a bond in your role right here tonight at any given board meeting, at any given district facility. But outside of these premises, if you're holding a community meeting at another location off district premises, you as a board member can advocate for the bond as long as you're not using any district money, any district resources. So, yes.
Do we have to make it known at that time that we're speaking as a private citizen as opposed to a board member, even if we're
You do not.
at a district location?
You do not, because you as a board member, you're considered more of a political animal, so to speak, and so that's what we want to see y'all do. We want to see you advocating outside of the school facilities, outside of using school resources, and you are allowed to do that as a school district member.
Thank you, ma'am.
So what can you talk about if you're using district resources or you're at district facilities? You can only provide factual information. I have an example on this slide that is from a different bond election that sets out, these are the facilities, these are the amounts, this is what these particular Prop A is going to cover, the different facilities under that. Same with Proposition C on that ad. What constitutes electioneering and advocacy has to do with what you say or do. Is it intended to influence a voter? Are you encouraging them to vote yes or no? Again, this is using district resources and facilities. If you're a district employee, it's going to be a little different in terms of what kind, if you're using your email, et cetera, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We've also talked about, and the district's been doing this, any promotional materials coming out from administration to have bond counsel review it just to ensure it's not crossing that line into advocacy, because your promotional materials are using district resources. That's district copiers, printers, computers. So yes?
Can we as board members pay for and generate our own
Absolutely.
materials to send out?
Absolutely. If you're generating it on your own using your own private money, your own private computer, printer, paper, et cetera, that's not using district resources, and you're allowed to do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, on what constitutes district resources? What we've been talking about is school equipment and supplies. That could be a computer that's assigned to somebody. As a board member, if you have an email that's assigned to you as a board member, that would be district resources, because that's a school district generated email. So you would not be wanting to send anything promoting the bond through your school district email if you have one of those. Also, employees working during school district time. Anytime it's time spent on your job, in your role as superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager, et cetera, you cannot be promoting the bond in terms of advocacy. You can only present informational items only.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, one of my intentions will be to email my constituency as well as text them. But I do use my own Gmail, and have always used that as my mode of communication. So I should be okay with that. But I guess my question for you is that sometimes in the branding, in the promotion, I will have the JISD logo, or I may have my JISD trustee shirt on or something that indicates that I'm a trustee. Is it clear that I would not be violating anything if I were to be in uniform, if you will, like having a Judson ISD logo or brand on? Do you know?
That's a good question. I don't think that would. That's personal apparel, and that's not district resource that's used to promote the bond.
You can do that.
Yeah, and again, my distinction is, as long as I'm not on district property, I'm just talking facts. But if
Correct.
I'm outside, and that would even go into the realm of social media, which I plan to
Correct.
use heavily as well.
Correct.
I can advocate and take a position and have an opinion on the
Absolutely.
bond.
Every one of the board members can post to social media promoting the bond. Every one of the board members can write to the San Antonio Express News letter to the editor promoting the bond, as long as they're using your own personal resources.
And I guess just so I'm very clear, in order to text my constituency or send emails, there is a cost sometimes associated with that. I plan to use campaign funds for that. So that's part of what I want to make sure is clear. They're not like I'm taking money out of my own wallet.
Okay.
I have campaign contributions that I'm using to send text. So please clarify if that's permissible or not.
So can he mix campaign, essentially can you mix campaign resources from one campaign for his candidacy to the election?
We'd have to look at that to make sure,
Well,
Jose,
let me know,
because
'cause
that contribution is made for you to run for your campaign,
It-
not necessarily you to promote the bond.
Right.
So we would have to double check, but we can. We'll double check.
Yeah,
and
if
let
you
know.
if you don't mind, because obviously if I'm going to invest in sending, that's kind of what we're here for. Because if I use PAC money to promote it, I mean, I'm not going to be campaigning. I'm campaigning for the bond. But I would then say, let me have PAC money to send a text, because again, it does get costly to send these messages out. And just need to find out which way, or if I can't, then I won't.
Sure.
But certainly want to make sure I understand that so I know which way I can move forward
We
with
will
that.
double check that, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms.
Yes, just to piggyback on Mr. Macias, please check on that, because I have money left over from my campaign
Okay.
that I would like to use toward this effort. So I need to know
Okay.
if
We'll
I'm
definitely look
allowed
into
to
that.
or not.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
But that makes me also think of another point. When you're sending out emails, there is a question, it's questionable whether you can send emails to, if anybody has a district email address, because they could potentially open that email promoting the bond during work hours using district resources. And so I would just be very careful to make sure that the emails you're sending out are not including any of those emails.
And most of the time, the emails are community, like
Right.
HOAs and neighborhoods. I seldom ever see a ISD, but if so, we can always pull that just so that there's no
Yeah.
gray area.
Okay. So can the school district itself take an official position on the bond election? I think I've made that clear. You cannot. You're limited to communicating only facts about the bond. So I wanted to give you all examples of when facts cross the line into advocacy, because we've talked about before, sometimes it's counterintuitive when you're looking at what constitutes electioneering versus what is facts only. What I've put up on this slide are actual slogans and phrases that have been found to cross the line into advocacy. These were real phrases that were used. So one of the big prohibitions is not using a motivational slogan for your bond election, just period. You can't use, that's kind of crosses into marketing, which in itself is trying to influence the voter to vote for a bond. So on this particular slide, the motivational slogan that was found to cross the line was every child deserves a good education, put children first, show you care, making comments that the bonds are the only viable solution for this district. Another interesting one is images of non-district students in publications, and the reason that that is considered advocacy is because if they're not a student in your district, it's not a fact. It's not a factual representation for the district, so that doesn't constitute factual information, and therefore the TASB and TA look at that as crossing the line into advocacy. Images intended to sway voters, comments about your schools being in, quote, bad shape, comments that the bond is the, quote, best solution. I mean, that is an advocacy term. Those are kind of things I look for when I'm looking at your informational brochures, because what is the best solution is really for the voters to determine. And that's why we shouldn't be advocating on that. Keeping the control here and any other motivational slogans. pictures and images can also cross the line into advocacy. These pictures I have up here were actual images that were used in some bond informational brochures that were determined to constitute electioneering. And I thought these were pretty creative, but they were considered unethical. One was the taxpayer slaying the lost funding dragon, and then an image telling the voters that your tax increase is really only the cost of one pizza in a whole year. And so
a slice.
yeah, just yeah, exactly. But as creative as those were, and as helpful as they may seem, they do cross the line into advocacy, and we have to avoid those. We also look at the voiceovers and videos because those can be found across the line, which the one that the Ethics Commission found across the line was one saying the district has left no stone unturned to postpone the effects on its students constituted impermissible advocacy, because that's trying to persuade the voter. We've done everything we can. The only thing left is this bond. You've got to vote for this bond, is how that comes across. So the images are held to the same standard as written and verbal communications. So when we're sticking to facts only, non-advocacy, what are we talking about? When you're in the position of you're using district resources, district time, district facilities, as a board member, you have to stick to facts only, which are going to be what are the bonds, what buildings are they going to be used for, what the money is going to be used for, how much the bond money we're asking for, the growth rate in the district, because I know that's an issue for our Prop B about the new middle school. We're talking about, you can talk about the growth rates, you can talk about performance data, you can talk about student capacity in the classrooms, the current student capacity, the fact that you've got portable buildings. You can talk about the age and condition of the buildings. You can talk about the current tax rate and what the tax rate will be if the bond passes. And of course, the voting dates, times, and locations. Yes?
Okay, we already know that there will be a slight increase in the tax rate.
Correct.
Unlike the last bond where we knew there wasn't going to be one, but because the state decided that that is something that has to be implemented on the bond,
Correct.
They have to have that statement there.
Correct.
That says this is a tax increase.
Correct.
But that one actually wasn't. This
Right.
one will be. Love it, on board with it, but what I need people to kind of research, understand, is that what we're trying to do is to make sure that we have all the pieces in place to do what needs to be done to protect all of our children. And that's without pulling heartstrings. I just want to be able to state those facts.
Right.
Yes, we protect our kids every day. Our staff, they've gone overboard this past summer on the training. Dr. Ball has made sure that everyone is on board, trained, even our new teachers. These are the things that has to happen. I'm a school board member, and even when I go to a school, you know, I got to show all that documentation I need to show, just like a parent. And I have 4 grandchildren, well, great-grandchildren in the district. And so I just want people to understand, we're not trying to make it more difficult for them. What we're trying to do is to make it safer for our children and our staff. And that's crucial.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, when we start talking to the public about this, whether we're doing it in the capacity of a school board member or a community member, family member, what are some of the facts that we can state?
Okay, 2 things. One, I want you to remember that when you're out of this room and you're in a different place, you can talk as much as you want about the bonds in whatever manner you want to talk about the bond.
If you're at church, at the grocery store, at a Little League baseball game, at just a community event, as a citizen, you can actually, I'll let Stacey say that. Those are just examples.
Yes. Yeah, as a citizen and as a board member in the community not using district resources, at the Little League games, at your church, at the library, you can promote the bond and you can talk about why you think the safety and security proposition is such a good idea for your district and how it impacts all the campuses.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Okay, what you can do, and I think we've covered a lot of this. This is a summary. is I want you to make sure you know your bond propositions and the proposals. I want you to know what they're covering, what they're going to be providing for the district if they pass, the cost, what the tax increase is, and you made a good point that right now it's 1 cent. And what I like about the fact that it's 1 cent is because, as you said, the state requires that you have to have the statement, this is a property tax increase on the ballot. And that's usually a turnoff to a voter. But if in your informational materials, you're telling them, yes, it's a tax increase of 1 cent, that's a lot more palatable than saying we have a tax increase and maybe they don't understand that.
I'm sorry, but also it wasn't, well, I'm not going to say it wasn't fair, but honestly, when we went to ask for a bond before, as a board member, I guess I missed it, that it was going to have that statement on there. That is something that is required by the state.
Right, and that's as of
Whether
2019.
or not we're doing a tax increase or not.
Correct.
That is required by the state to be on there.
Correct.
And that's what I was really hurt because I had told so many people, come on,
Right.
support this. And then they called me and they were like, Miss Eaton, it's right there. And I'm like, that's a requirement, but
Right.
that's not what we're doing. This time we're actually going for at least 1 cent.
Yeah. That wasn't just this district, that was across the state. That was a new requirement since 2019. And with a lot of the changes in the tax rate across the state, a lot of the bonds that were being proposed across the state actually did not increase the bottom line for the taxpayer. It actually went down, but they still had to have that statement in the ballot. And that did create confusion because they felt like on one hand, they're telling us we're not going to have an increase in our taxes, but the ballot says which one's the correct one.
So a question to follow that up is that I think in one of our briefings last month or a couple of weeks ago, the example was $10 for every 100,000. That would be a fact, but and it was $20 for every 200, I think, is what the deal was. But regardless, we want to be as accurate because we're generalizing. So would we need to get an actual whatever that is per 100,000 or per 200,000 so we can say it's fact? This
Yes.
is what it comes out to.
Yes.
And Tony, when would that come about?
We have that now. It's in a voter information document that'll be at the back of the election order. I can make sure y'all have a copy of that and you'll see that on there.
Okay.
And I know they're putting that in the bond brochure as well. I've seen that in the information they've had us review. That's covered in there on what the total amounts are. And I think it was in the bond frequently asked questions. So going back to what we were on, with district resources, you can share only facts. Outside of that, y'all can encourage people to vote and vote for the bond. Using district resources, you can only encourage them to vote, but not how to vote. And of course, the most important do is every one of y'all also need to get out and vote. The don'ts, for staff, they can't advocate during work hours. Nobody can conduct political advertising using district resources or property or using district money. Can you individually put a sign to vote yes for the bond? Yes, you can. And you don't have to put a disclaimer. We talked about that as well.
Let me interrupt you again.
Go ahead.
Can we hold a sign? Most polls are at schools. So we're on district property. Can we hold a vote yes sign while we're on campus? I would say no if we're going to follow that
Right.
guideline.
Right.
So if I don't even think, because I plan to be at the polls on election day or even early vote, basically shaking hands, telling people please support the bond. But I have to be careful then because if I'm on a district resource like a school,
Right.
I wouldn't be able to say that.
Correct. I would not do that at a school polling site, but at other polling sites you could.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
But aren't there a certain amount of feet that you have to stay out of the polling
Yes.
site? So couldn't he
Yeah.
truly do it like right outside the gate?
My concern about doing it on at the school district polling sites is it's district property.
Okay.
Even outside of the,
Well, if
I
he's
think it's 20 feet. And even outside of that limit is still considered district property?
Well, I'm not talking about the limits on the sign. I know there's a certain number of feet they have to
Right,
be away
20
from the
feet.
polling center.
20 feet.
But let's say he's 40 feet away, but he's still in the school parking lot.
It's still
That's
district
still school property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the 20 feet rule is you can't talk to them when they're within that confines.
Correct.
But we're still on district property, so I see that. I'd have to
Okay,
be
because
across the
we
street.
do that a lot. Mr. Macias and I go to the individual schools and, chant and
Right.
have our little signs and
Campaign.
stuff. So definitely want to make sure we're not violating that.
Right.
I appreciate the clarity. I agree with you.
Okay. That's just you. I just want y'all to avoid any appearance of impropriety on it. So that's why I would say not on district property. And we mentioned this one earlier when we were talking about emails. Just to be careful sending emails if you're sending it to a school district email address, because an employee could look at it on their school computer during work hours, which would be using district resources. Same with flyers and teacher mailboxes. I can't have anybody doing that because that's a district resource.
So then is your suggestion that we stay away from, like me, this is just me, as a superintendent, and sending an email to employees and saying, please remember to vote?
You can do that. You can encourage people to vote,
Okay,
just not how to vote.
right. But how about going a step further? And because it is public information as to who has voted or not voted.
Okay.
Okay,
That
so-
one, I will caution you just because the AG's been a stickler on this recently. My legal opinion is it's public information. And it is, that the county elections officers are required to post the early voter names and what day they voted. So yes, you would have access to that information. Yes, the principal would have access to that information. But what the AG has been coming down on is what comes across to an employee as pushing them to go vote. And so the concern is people consider voting very personal, and we can't find out how they voted. But when they find out somebody's been looking at their voting record and they don't realize that that was public information to begin with, they're starting to feel like they were coerced or pressured. And the AG has been investigating claims of that, although legally speaking, technically, I feel like it's public information. And I still feel like, too, that principals could encourage employees to vote by saying, if we have X number of people that vote by the last early voting day, everybody can wear jeans on Friday. But they would have to show their I voted sticker. And I would prefer them show I voted sticker as opposed to looking at a spreadsheet and I don't see your name on here. You could use the spreadsheet and maybe not tell employees if you've seen them vote or not vote, and just keep a running tally of how many voted on your campus and give a reward to those employees having a jean day, for instance. That's not using district resources to let them wear jeans on any given day. Any more questions on that? I know that one's kind of a sticky subject.
Well, I just want people to understand that, because even when we all up here launch our reelection campaigns, we go back and we retrieve previous voting records. So we know if a certain address has 5 people or 4 people or 3 or just one person that votes from that address. We don't know how you voted.
Right.
But we know somebody in that household votes.
Correct.
Their civic obligation. And we appreciate that. And so we will, like when we send out our mailers, we make sure to send that household a mailer saying, hey, I'm up for reelection. Hope you watched what I did during this past time, and that you continue to support me on this journey of supporting Judson Independent School District. So people really need to know that's available to all politicians.
Right.
But we don't know how you voted, and we don't know who voted.
Correct.
Just that somebody at that address did vote.
Correct. Now, the early voting will actually say their names. The names are listed on early voting on the county website. Yeah. Did you want to add something to that? Okay. On flyers and teacher mailboxes, you can put flyers in the teacher mailboxes if it's only about the facts of the bond, because as long as it's information only, you can use district resources and you can distribute that to, in-house or to the community. So again, I think I've covered everything. If anybody has any more questions, now's the time.
Ms. Canoia just told me I misspoke.
Okay.
Can you correct me, please, ma'am? You
I think
said-
she was saying that the names do appear.
Yeah, on the voter list that we get from the county, it has the names of the voters. But again, we don't know how you voted, just that you did go vote.
Right.
So there we go. The names of the people
Right.
in the household that voted will appear, but we don't know how you voted.
Right. But there has been recent investigations into other school districts where the principals had the list of who voted and would compare it to their campus employees, and they would mark down who had not voted and would call them out for not having voted yet. And so the AG is looking at it as coercion. But like I said earlier, I mean, it is public information, and you can encourage people to go vote. It's just an issue. I just don't want to see anybody saying, go vote for this.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome, she said. All right, so I handed out a couple of handouts, and the one that says Board of Trustees is specifically kind of geared toward board members. And then there's another one that says Judson Independent School District staff. So these are, a lot of it is what Stacy already covered, but it's a good short little kind of handout to have that you can keep handy. I want to point out, like, for example, on the Board of Trustees on the very bottom, talking about some of the things you can do as a citizen. You can have a sign in your own property. You know, if there happens to be a political action committee put together, you know, vote yes for the bond. It's your home, your property. You can do that. Next page talks about if you want to, as a board member, as an individual citizen, write a letter to the editor saying you think you need to support this. If you and Mr. Macias talked about his own personal stuff, emails and social media. You can put on your own Facebook page. You know, I'm a resident of Judson and I'm going to support this bond. I'm also a board member, and put the facts, and you can, but it's, as long as it's yours, not the school district's. So these are just some handy resources to keep close by. So I'm going to let John real quick talk a little bit about, and we're going to give you one more handout about PACs and how that works. And we'll talk a little bit more on some of the legal issues in close, because we have to be careful with some stuff.
They'll all hit the recycle bin by the end of the, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Tony, I have a question about something on here. D on the one for board members says, if you have an official school trustee social media platform, do not use it for advocacy. So I have a Facebook page that's as a political entity. It's my personal, based off of my personal Facebook page. That account created that page. I only use it at home to do things. I've never posted anything except through my personal phone or my personal computer at home. Am I not allowed to advocate on that? It's not school district.
So you have your own.
I have a page as my role as a board of trustees. It did not come from the district. It's not attached to the district at all. It's attached to my personal Facebook.
Yeah, you can use that.
Okay, I want to be sure.
Yeah.
In that case, should I also say that this was not used with any?
Doesn't hurt to say that. Okay. This is not,
use that disclaimer. No, school district
resources
were used to create this
doesn't
message.
hurt to say that. Yep.
Put that in there. Okay.
Yep.
Can I add a thought?
So, Tony.
Yeah,
go
please.
ahead.
John wanted to add a thought.
I just want to add a thought cross topic. Because I think the social media platform that can be the most dangerous for that is Twitter, because you can connect to another page. So you may have something that is identifiably yours exclusively, but you then attach at the Judson ISD bond page. Well, you've incorporated the Judson ISD official page by reference, and I think that starts blurring the lines, because people are going to that one Twitter and saying, well, here's this opinion and this message. It's not really separated from the district. So I think that's where you have to be careful of just kind of the cross attachments or the cross pollination of the different social media platforms and pages. Yes, ma'am.
So what I have been doing, because I joined every social media page that each of our schools has, whether it's in my district or not, so I get all of their information when they're having events. What I've been doing is forwarding it to my Gmail account and then posting it from my Gmail account. Is that okay? Because I have friends that have nothing to do with Judson, you know, but because I'm a member of sororities and fraternity, well,
Sure.
not fraternities, but sororities and Eastern Star, I have friends that are educators outside of our district, and I want to show them what we're doing in Judson, so I forward things to my Gmail account so that I can post it from there and they get to see it.
That shouldn't be it. I can't see that being an issue, just
Okay?
by the fact pattern. Because you're pushing it out, where if you
Right, I don't make
if you were creating the
comments
content and
other than, hey,
synthesizing
look
it
what we're
together,
doing.
then I think that's where you're generally going to run into your issues.
If you're just reposting something, sharing something.
Yeah, but you know, I have to make them jealous, so I have to go, you know,
with
we have
no,
mariachis, y'all don't. You know, so I make little comments like that.
But
you
anything
know?
the district puts out should be fine.
Okay.
Period. Factual only, so sharing that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not,
All right. All right,
But
the
what
next
you were
fro-
saying, what you were saying about the other social media is like, if we tweet something or put something on Facebook that is like, vote yes on the bond, we should not at Judson ISD on it, correct? Okay.
Correct. You're bringing them in by incorporation. And maybe the other way it would work is if you have a Facebook site for Judson ISD bond. Probably, and I'm not an expert on this, but it's probably dangerous for someone to be liking other pages and collecting followers, because that stuff gets attached by
your fault.
your followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you've got to be real careful on who is operating that page and trying to keep it really clean and separated from anything else, to where you're not creating these webs that a message is going to get posted that may not necessarily need to be attached to the Judson ISD bond page. Sorry. So,
Real quick. Some pages on one of my handouts came out. If anybody's missing pages 33 through 37, let me know. Yeah, on the ethics for PACs. 33 through 37 came off. Okay, sorry.
okay. Oh, no, I'm good. I'll be better. Sorry. I forget it's recording over and not just speaking to you, so my apologies. What you have in front of you is the Texas Ethics Commission Guide on Political Action Committees. I've tried to synthesize it to a few points from a variety of perspectives that I think that is applicable for your all's situation being board members. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and interject, but I think the way I go about this will probably solicit some questions as well. I think the biggest key to understand is, by nature, Political Action Committee, this is something of a different element that is outside of the scope of the school district. Run generally, run by folks not employed by the school, run by folks who aren't trustees. And I'll give you the first evidence of that is if and when a PAC is formed to either support the bond propositions or against it, one of the folks they have to file to is the district secretary of the board. So you can kind of see right there, just by virtue of what the requirements are for the PAC with regard to filing, that if one of the entities receiving the filings is the board, then it kind of implies that there's got to be some separation between the school district and the PAC. So I start there just to kind of clarify that we are distinct. If and when a PAC is formed, it's going to be formed as a specific purpose political committee, and basically that's a term basically to indicate that we have formed this for a specific reason, and in this case, it's to support the bond, or you may find that a PAC may be formed to not support the bond. But for what you would see the PAC formed, that's how it would be categorized. So if you do read through here, when you see general PAC, that is not necessarily applicable to the district. What is the specific purpose political committee. Some things that you know that each PAC will have is a campaign treasurer. Again, those are the folks that are going to primarily be responsible for providing the forms and the reports to, again, not only the district, but the Texas Ethics Commission. And so those have to be filed on a regular basis. And those are things that, as you can expect, you want to make sure that those folks that are participating are doing those in a timely fashion. So there is a bit of governance from the district standpoint that they have to be somewhat involved in making sure that especially if you have someone out there working on behalf of the district, you don't want them to get tripped up on a procedural matter that they're not filing the reports on a timely basis or in the manner that they're required to do so. I think one of the things in here that's pretty interesting is, and maybe helpful, is that corporations and entities can contribute to special purpose PACs. So if there are construction firms, architectural firms, other folks that may want to see this passed for whatever reason, those types of entities can contribute to the PAC. I think as a board member, part of what I think you're looking to do is provide those folks who are interested in either contributing or serving on the PAC as steering them in the right direction. So I share that with you because I imagine one of the questions you're going to have is, can I contribute, or who can contribute? And so obviously individuals can, but just know that corporations can as well. The one little caveat that can come up is, well, I've got $300 in my pocket. Can I contribute to the PAC? Here it is. The most you can contribute in cash is $100. So just file that kind of in the back of your mind, that because you can see where you can see abuses being made based upon cash contributions to PACs, and you just want to make sure there's no abuses to really taint the efforts that the community is making to support the bond election. A couple other issues that I think that have come up is there is an existing PAC that is out there, and the question is, I think I've heard this, can funds from that PAC be contributed to a new PAC? And the answer is yes, there is a path for that to be done. The path would be that the old PAC would write a check to the new PAC, and then it would probably be advisable that the old PAC go through an official dissolution of the old PAC. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain why the old PAC couldn't just reopen up again?
Well, they could. I mean, if you want, they have the right to continue on if they want.
Right, so hypothetically, could the old PAC open up again with a new treasurer or a new leader of it or whatever?
Absolutely. You can change who is in charge, the treasurer who's in charge of the reporting, just like if you would reassemble your governance here on the board. Those things can change. It's not stagnant that you have to start a new PAC if the treasurer leaves. You can appoint a new treasurer. Yes, ma'am.
I know that we kind of hit on this at our meeting, but I don't recall us discussing as an entire board and yourself that we're interested in actually having a PAC for this event because of the timeline.
That's fine.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying, 'cause I can't speak for the whole board. It's just that I don't recall us speaking like that as one on whether or not we want to do that.
And let me just add that typically the board has stayed away from the PAC. The PAC was motivated by our community, and in this last instant, administration was involved, I think, in some of that too. But we're all going to be taking a step back. So one of the questions I had was, since there will be more advocacy from the board regarding this bond, what can that relationship be with the PAC, or do we still keep hands off and allow the PAC to just organically move throughout within the community?
Well, I think the best answer is that you can only hope to influence it, right? Because as the trustee or as a employee of the district, the PAC would be its own entity, created for its own purpose to advocate however it wants to advocate. I think the discussion, at least from the meetings that I've been on, was, do we need a PAC to help with signs, those kind of instruments that help get the vote out from a visual standpoint? Certainly, I've seen plenty of bond elections passed without a PAC, but I've also seen elections passed with a PAC. So I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I guess for our purposes here, just trying to give you some information on maybe how that relationship needs to be and what are some of the parameters around that relationship as it pertains to district and PAC, or board and PAC.
I'm not clear, but let me just reiterate my question. I've been contacted by already a couple of people wanting to get this PAC off the ground, get started, and I really have no recourse for them. I don't know where to send them or what to do, or if I should even get involved in that process. So I just want to be clear, is it your recommendation that we then as a board allow the community PAC to move on its own and we're not involved with it, or can we be engaged with the PAC?
You can be engaged in a limited fashion, to where if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm interested in supporting the district through a PAC, how would I go about doing that? And I think the first step you would say, there's a great resource on the Texas Ethics Commission website that will help you walk through that process. We would love to have your support. If that's the way that you would like to advocate it, that would be great. But you've got to follow these steps. The district can't be necessarily a turnkey conduit for creating that PAC. Does that answer your question?
It does a little bit. There's nothing in writing then that stipulates what the procedures are for Board of Trustees in terms of their engagement with the PAC?
There's nothing memorialized from the Texas Ethics Commission. I think probably what we could do is contact Texas Association of School Boards, and they may have some greater resources on that topic, but they don't delineate what school board members can and can't do with regard to the PAC.
Well, and obviously the stakeholders that are involved in promoting the bond to our community leverage a PAC to acquire the signage and mail outs and other literature that are helpful, so that the district doesn't have to put resources in printing those things. But the PAC, so we're clear in this conversation, if there's one that moves forward or is restarted from the previous one we had, they can advocate then. They're
Absolutely.
And so it just needs to be clear that this is a PAC-generated marketing piece or something like
Correct.
Correct.
that. Okay.
And you as an individual can, if the PAC says we're going to have a block walking event, and PAC volunteers are going to come and pass out signs and T-shirts, you're a citizen in your community. You can participate as a citizen. But I think what we have to be careful with John's saying is we don't want the board helping them using district resources somehow to set up the PAC that's for it, because then, if there's a group that's against it, you got to do the same. So we just want to be careful with that. You could point them in the right direction, Jose, but we can't do it for them. Can't do it for them. You want to be careful.
Well, so it sounds like then being involved in it wouldn't be necessarily inappropriate. I can have some level of engagement with the PAC then. That's what I'm leaving this up.
You could have some level of engagement, yes, as a citizen. You want to be careful, though.
Yeah, I think that the delineation is you don't want to be perceived as the board is trying to promote that we're creating a PAC to support the bond election, and it's generated directly from the board. You want to have some buffer or some arm length transaction, so to speak, of those folks who are running it. Again, going back to the fact that the reporting for the PAC goes to the board, so that there's got to be this at least arm's length relationship between the two.
Yeah, so Jose, you wouldn't want to be the treasurer for the PAC or something like that. Does that make sense?
That does, but at least I can speak with them regarding strategy and who to contact and what relationships to cultivate and what HOAs and all that kind of stuff when we talk about promoting this bond.
And then I guess just to kind of close it is, if you read through this, it is helpful to anyone that is trying to get their hands around the creation of a PAC, and not only that, but what it entails and the responsibilities. Like any endeavor, it takes time, especially with the reporting. I mean, you guys know the reporting requirements given your all's campaigns for trustee. A very similar process as far as the organization, the time that goes into making those filings. And, I guess I'll harken back to one of my original topics is we just want to make sure that the PACs don't undermine the efforts of the district and the trustees in promoting the election. I have seen a couple times where the PACs have gone out of their way and maybe have not been as well organized, and we've seen that kind of be disruptive to the game plan or the ground game, so to speak, of the campaign to pass the propositions. So, any other questions? Thank you.
I don't have any now, but I do have Tony Resendez's cell number, so I will be calling
That's right.
him when it comes up.
And I'll give it to all you guys. So, because I will tell you, scenarios are going to pop up. You'll be at a elementary school play, and somebody wants to talk to you about, hey, are you going to vote for or against the bond? What can you tell me? Well, you're on district, you're a board member, provide information to be safe. Or you're going to have somebody who's against it out there passing out flyers against it. Well, can we do that? It's football season. What can we do at the football game? What can we do at the volleyball game? So, Jose, yeah, call me. Any of you guys call us, because little nuanced issues will come up. But one thing I hope you take away, again, as board members, you can provide information. Take a look at the ballot. Know what those three propositions, because that's factual information you can provide. Obviously you know the amounts. You can do that. You know what the bond's going to be used for. You can do that. You can tell them, please go out and vote. Don't tell them how to vote, but look, regardless, we want to hear from our community. We want this election to have a good voter turnout, so we know what our community, we want to hear from you. So go vote. You can say those kind of things as a board member using district resources. It's all factual. Promoting it, just think of it, when you're not to be safe, and we want to be conservative. We don't want anybody to accuse the district of using district resources in the middle of the campaign to create a distraction. Does that make sense? So we're going to go above and beyond to advise your staff and you all to be conservative. If it's in question and you're having to ask, then maybe here's the other thing. Maybe it is legal to do it, but the perception, you want to be careful with that. Because that can just create a cloud, and then you're having to defend yourself. Okay, maybe we can do it legally, but it just doesn't look good. Now, I know the campaign folks are going to want to be aggressive, and they should, but let the campaign folks do that. Those, if there is a PAC, or even if there's not a PAC and they're just a group of citizens privately who want to go out and spend money to get this thing passed, that's up to them, and they can. So I hope this was helpful and beneficial in terms of some of the general guidance, in terms of some of the things you can and can't do. Some of the things you got to be careful with. We do have a closed session item just so we can kind of hit some specific issues that we think you guys need to hear about, as just to keep things, make sure you're careful. And then to provide you guys an opportunity to ask us any legal questions that you might have in closed session as well. So, Stacy or John, do you have anything else? Okay, so we're ready to go to closed. Oh, unless there's board members have questions, absolutely.
We have more information for the board.
Oh,
And then
gotcha.
we could go into close.
My bad, okay.
No problem. But wanted to share with the board that immediately after the board made the decision to move forward with the bond, we started to work on that. And the communications team has already done a fabulous job preparing information. And Stacy and Tony and John, everybody has been very helpful. They are constantly, almost every day, I think, getting emails and sending them back to us and looking at everything. So wanted to give the board a glimpse of some of the information so you could ask us questions while the legal team is here. They could look at all the final products. So Nicole has prepared some information. And then at the end, we'd also like to get some very specific feedback from the board. So I'll let Nicole get started.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Jess. I'm just going to pull up the presentation in Google. Oh. So like Dr. Ball said, we have been spending a lot of time strategizing our information sharing, and so we did want to provide you with a little bit of an update on where we are as far as that goes. One of our focus areas is getting general information out. So our team has already worked to develop the website. It is live. It went live earlier this week. And we are continuing to provide updates on this website as we are getting feedback and as we are getting questions. So even from the screenshot that you see down in the corner, we've added some different icons to take people directly to certain information. Tax rate increase information are one of those items that is a frequently asked question. So we did add an icon that somebody can press, and it takes you directly to that list of FAQs that we have listed there. We have established a contact email specifically for bond questions. So anyone can email us, JISDbond2022@judsonisd.org. We have already had our informational flyer created and approved by Bond Counsel. We are best friends. We talk to each other all the time. They're really great about giving us feedback, and we are making those changes quickly and working on getting those translated so that we can send them out and use them as we go about sharing more information. We just finished recording our informational video, and so we are in the process of editing and producing that. We also intend to create mini videos about the potential tax rate impact, also about ballot language, what a voter could expect to see, and then also some mini overview videos that we can share on different platforms. Our next focus is on the voters. We know from our last bond that we need to reach all of our voters, not just our registered voters that are connected to our district with students. So we've obtained the registered voter file from the county. We've already started to share information about voter registration deadlines, and we're pushing that out. We intend to send 2 rounds of targeted mailers to our registered voters, specifically targeting our 65 plus registered voters and then the rest of them. And our first round of mailers will be sent by September 8th. We are also distributing voter registration cards to campuses with just a little information on when the registration deadlines are, what it takes to be eligible to vote. We are also working with our campuses to ensure that we are getting some of our students who are eligible to vote the opportunity to do so on campuses during that Constitution Week. An update on our voter research survey. We've been meeting with our firm. We are in the very last stages of finalizing our questions. The interviews will occur between September 4th through September 7th, and we will have results by September 13th. We hope to use those results to better prepare some of our informational flyers as far as wording goes, and we will be able to send those out. We are also focusing on communication within our community. We are scheduling community forums at each campus. Those will start the beginning of September 12th. We will have our Community Connections Luncheon that is being sponsored by our Education Foundation. That will be happening on the 7th of October. We are planning to provide information to our community during our Wobble and Gobble event on November 5th. We are working with different local businesses and organizations to get on some of their agendas in their meetings so that we can speak on the bond and provide information. We also have a flyer distribution platform that we use throughout the district to communicate with our families. So as well as community meetings, as well as mass notifications, we will utilize this platform to send out factual sheets to them. We also are scheduled to attend city council meetings, and so that schedule you'll see in an upcoming slide. We will have informational yard signs and banners that we will post around our district, and also banners for our buses. We also have a focus on media messaging. So we have plenty of platforms that we are going to share information both in print and digital. Some are published weekly, some monthly. We also have email blasts. So all of that collateral will be approved by Bond Council. We are sending them things daily, and so I think we have almost everything that we're going to send out for these platforms sent to them, probably just one or two more. We have a digital billboard in Kirby. We've already sent them the graphic that will be used, that will be posted and shown out there. We have meetings with some media coverage stations. I have one with KSAT on Friday to see how we can get our information out a little bit more to reach more of our community. And of course, we will utilize our district social media platforms. That's ongoing, but we do have 2 Facebook Live events that we will be scheduling in October, targeting our English-speaking population, but also our Spanish-speaking population. This is just a high-level overview of what we're working on weekly and what we plan to do. I won't read it all to you, but it is there so that you can see what our plan is. We've got something going on every week all the way up until the week of the election day, and most of it, well, all of it is just sending information, but in various ways. This is the schedule of our city council meetings and which senior staff member is assigned to which one. Dr. Ball, do you want to address this?
So we would like to ask for a board member to accompany us to these, depending on, of course, your city, your municipality. We would like for you to accompany us to these to help us spread the information. Along with, and Nicole has a chart where you can just sign up for that, and we will work around your schedule. But if you would already sign up for those, we'd love for you to do that. And then, of course, we're also once we have the sheets finalized for all the campuses, we'd also be asking for a board member to attend to your corresponding campus. So I'd really like to take some time to truly get back some feedback from board members in regard to this. So your reflections in regards to our timeline, what we're doing, it's very important to us that we hear from the board specifically on this. So we'll start with you, Ms. Rodriguez, specifically on the part that Nicole shared.
Could you go back to the more detailed schedule? This one, yes, thank you. I need in order to react, I need a minute to look at it, but I think
Absolutely.
My question, this is very dense, so maybe you can tell me off the top of your head, like, how often are mailers going to be going out to voters in the community beyond just people who have kids in schools? What's our targeted approach there, if you could give a voiceover?
Yes, ma'am. We are going to send mailers out to the community. So we have that list of registered voters already from the county. We are going to send 2 rounds of targeted mailers to them.
Ms. Rodriguez, if you could share, if you don't mind, specifically, are you thinking 2 is good? If you could share some thoughts on that, some reflection pieces.
I know that budget factors into it. It is expensive to send out mailers. the advice I've gotten in the past is 3. They need to see it 3 times in order to see it. But so I don't know if like there's a smaller list of like frequent voters or something that we could target and then hit 3 times. That may be one suggestion.
Thank you. We will definitely look into that. I know Ms. Greathouse is taking some notes, so thank you.
Then we're going to skip Mr. Diaz because he's not here, but hopefully he'll provide us. This is being recorded, so maybe he will.
He's on his way, but is encountering unexpected delays.
Okay, no problem. Then we will go to Mr. Macias.
I'm just excited. I actually do like what I've seen. I have a general question. I do know that PACS would have paid for some of the material, so is the district incorporating then the expenditures for the mail-outs and for the printed materials and
Yes,
stuff?
everything that you see and hear that the communications department is doing is all coming from district budget. We're going to keep a different budget code for this, so at the end we'll be able to share those costs. But everything that we're doing is, of course, factual, so legally we could pay for it, and we're going to.
Sure, okay, that's clear and understood, because obviously we need to get this information out. The timeline, I assume, has a built-in modification, I guess, as things go on, so
Absolutely.
we
Yes.
troubleshoot through it. But no, I'm generally very impressed and eager to get started on this. And, you know, I think what Ms. Rodriguez had mentioned strategically about 3 points of communication is critical. So I don't think I have much more to add. I'm pleased. I'm ready to get out there. I'm ready to advocate, and so.
Well, thank you. And just to be clear, some of these things will also be in Spanish, so I don't know. Just wanted to, again, reiterate that. And thank you for that and for those words, because I'm extremely proud of how quickly the communications department has put this together. They have done a wonderful job, and they're working hard, so thank you. We'll just go down this way, Ms. Pichelle, then we'll come back.
I'm going to be supportive of this initiative. I just would like to see what the branding is going to look like. I'd like to see what the information is going to look like. And, you know, my whole concern with this is timing. So I really would like to see if moving this forward as we are doing is going to make that difference. So, Dr. Ball, I'm going to be supportive. I just would like to know about the PAC. It doesn't seem like that's solidified yet, so I'd like to know about the PAC and what the information is going to look like.
Right. I will not be able to answer any questions about the PAC, unfortunately. So that I won't be able to give any information on that. So anybody that's out listening, they could certainly form their PAC, but I won't be able to.
Well, Dr. Ball, I'm going to encourage those 2 individuals that called me to get that started, and so that's where it'll start. And I think when we go into closed session, I guess if there's something legally, we can kind of maneuver through that. But that's my plan.
Absolutely. Just to give, we can give the updates more often, but this will be a standing agenda item to give the board an update at every board meeting. Our website will be updated. Our website is already up. You can see the graphic that the team has developed. It's a beautiful graphic. So, Ms. Eaton, I'll turn it over to you.
I just have one question. Can we use, are the lawyers still here?
Yes, ma'am, they're right there.
Can we use our robocall on this as maybe our third?
To provide informational, yes.
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 We can?
You can use district resources to provide information for sure.
Right, informational.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
yes, you can.
That's what came to my mind.
That's a great idea. We'll put that one down for Ms. Eaton. We'll use our robocall, which we're calling it now, somebody help me out with them.
We will be using Blackboard mass
Blackboard.
notification, and it's
Thank you.
somewhere incorporated in the timelines of some different calls that we'll make
Thank
for
you, Ms. Eaton.
reminders.
Ms. King?
I'm just really impressed with the wide variety of the communication platforms that you guys are utilizing. I thought that was really good, and I just can't wait until you guys get started with all of this.
Thank you.
Ms. Canoyer?
Thank you. I don't have any suggestions at this time. I think it's very thorough. I want to commend the communications department and, of course, the firms that we're working with to support this effort for all this hard work. And I am more than happy to go to the city council meetings in the areas that I represent. I think I probably have more than anybody else. And even though I see that Schertz is on here, we don't actually have any homes in Schertz boundaries, but there are businesses so that might support. So that's something I'm happy to do there.
Thank you.
I thought of one more thing. I don't know if Spanish print and media is also in there. Okay, yeah. I know Univision or one of the radio stations does an early morning community broadcast that. So seeing
I think our meeting with them is next week. So yes, ma'am.
And I also have one other suggestion that I'm not sure was in here, but there is already an FAQ, frequently asked
Yes, sir.
questions. But the preference would be to address questions that will come up that may be unsupportive of the bond. As we've done our assessments already of where there was some discontent from our community, we need to already have a response for that. It would help the board or anyone advocating even at the PAC to have some sort of response. So if that's not already generated, think through what the feedback we have received from surveys from the failed bond last year and start getting ahead of it and provide it to us as well.
Great suggestion. And I think also parts of the voter research survey may help us anticipate what questions people may have, and we'll definitely add them there on our website.
Again, I can't thank Nicole and her team enough for everything they've done
team,
so quickly.
definitely.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes. Thank you.
And Madam President and board members, that's all we have if y'all want to go into closed session. And team, thank y'all very much.
All right, the board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074 and 551.071, discussion and consultation with attorney regarding legal issues concerning board member and superintendent roles as related to bond election training and guidelines. The time is now 6:12. All right, the board will now reconvene in open session. The time is 6:42. No final action, decision, or vote was taken while the board was in closed session. We have completed all the items on our agenda. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 6. Before I adjourn, Mr. Diaz was able to arrive during closed session, and just before closed session, Ms. Pichelle had to leave. And so we'll mark that on the attendance. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 6:43.